I'm so happy to be here. It's really a great pleasure to see so many new faces and so many familiar faces, and to officially open the ACS Entrepreneur Summit here at the historic Chemical Heritage Foundation. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce the president of CHF, but this is just a wonderful place. It's very exciting. And what better place to have an Entrepreneur Summit than at a place where the history is stored and written about the great entrepreneurs, the great innovators in the chemical industry and enterprise, right here at the Chemical Heritage Foundation. So, Tom, thank you very much, and we will let you say a few words in a bit. I wanted to tell you a little bit about why this event is taking place, and I had a prop, but of course I left it at my seat. So, Ken, could I ask you just to go over and pick up that green folder for me so I can use my prop on the second row? Thank you. This just goes to show how excited I am that I didn't even remember to bring to the front. I have to go back a few years to explain to you how ACS kind of got into this initiative, which we call the Entrepreneur Initiative. It was it actually was right after the presidential election of 2008, and Barack Obama, very historic election, and we also had a very historic election at the American Chemical Society. Our second African-American president, Joe Francisco, was elected, and a few weeks after he was elected, he showed up in my office and he said, "I have two initiatives for my presidential year." And I said, "But you've just been elected president-elect. That's a couple years off." He said, "We've got to start now." And he was very concerned, because I think you can all think back to 2008. It was not a great time in the economy. And he was very concerned about job losses in the U.S. in chemistry. And so he assembled a task force of people who had started companies. He was very focused on entrepreneurship. He really had this in his mind. He assembled a task force under George Whitesides at Harvard, who, of course, himself is a serial entrepreneur. We have Michael Leffenfeld in the audience, and he'll be speaking to you. And other people who had started companies, as well as people at large companies. And altogether, it was a very small, really tight task force. And they were charged with finding out what could ACS do. And I'm very pleased to say Dr. Pat Confalone, who'll be here tomorrow, was on that task force. He's with DuPont. I was the staff liaison to George Whitesides. Any of you know George Whitesides, you know what fun that is. George likes to do about 75 drafts of every paper he writes. And so Dave Harwell, who's here, was also a staff liaison, and he knows that he had to research every word that went into what became this report, Innovation, Chemistry, and Jobs. They asked very hard and probing questions about the role of chemistry in the past and looking forward. And the questions they were asked were, what were the root causes for historic job losses in chemistry? How could the chemical enterprise regain its leadership in innovation and ensure that we would continue our standard of living? And what specifically could the American Chemical Society do to help? So it was finally released in March. It didn't really get started until May of 2010, but in March of 2011, we issued this. And we learned a number of things that we thought were quite interesting and in some ways surprising. First of all, we documented that there had been 300,000 US-based chemist jobs that had been lost in the past 20 years. We learned that disruptive innovation in the chemical sciences is occurring at a less frequent rate. And by that we meant we are still being creative, we're still making process changes, we're still doing the sustaining type of innovation, but less of those disruptive innovations that create whole new industries. We learned that R&D expenditures are shifting from large companies to smaller companies, and we learned from our friends at the Ewing, Marion, Kauffman Foundation that startups provide new jobs across all industries. I don't want to steal his thunder, but you're going to hear from Dane Stangler soon about entrepreneurship in America. Ultimately, there were 4 recommendations that came out of this task force. And the first was, ACS should help entrepreneurs with resources to launch and grow startups. We should improve the business climate through policy initiatives, through advocacy on the Hill, increase the number of entrepreneurs by helping to educate our students that entrepreneurship is a viable career. And finally, we need to publicize the efforts that ACS is doing. And let me say at this point, there are a lot of very robust entrepreneurial activities going on throughout the American Chemical Society. We have a number of people here who are involved in them. People like Sadiq Shaw, you're going to hear from, Judy Jordan, Mukund Chorgadi in the back. So many people have been working on entrepreneurship at ACS. This was an effort to kind of centralize and focus it, but without in any way taking away from the wonderful activities that are going on. So immediately we began implementing these recommendations, and we've had some very good success. We helped influence legislation that provided more incentives for entrepreneurs. We have helped establish career pathways to help expose students. We have a program called ACS on Campus, and entrepreneurship is one of the career pathways that we now talk about. We have been trying to help publicize all of the work on entrepreneurship that is already going on in our local sections, our 187 local sections, and our 33 technical divisions. We have put these resources on a website. This report is also available on a website with hundreds of pages of appendices. And we have a brand new award to recognize entrepreneurs called the Kathryn Hawk Award for Entrepreneurial Success. Kathryn Hawk, Kitty Hawk, who is turned 90 in October, is an entrepreneur who, with her husband, Clifford Hawk, helped start the Hawk Scientific Company and Scientific Foundation. We have a gallery here at the Chemical Heritage Foundation that is named after the Hawks. And I would just say that she is really an extraordinary example of an entrepreneur, and this award will be given for the first time. Will be announced this summer, the first winner of that. And then there's the pilot program and the reason we're here today. And this is called the Entrepreneurial Initiative. It has two parts. It has a training program for aspiring entrepreneurs. We've been able to very successfully partner with the Kauffman Foundation on this, and then the Entrepreneurial Resources Center, and this summit is put together here. So I hope that you'll have a chance to learn more about what we're doing. And the Entrepreneurial Resources Center helped organize this with the hope that the people here will gain a deeper understanding of the commercialization challenges and the interplay between startups and government, people who are funders, partners toward the successful commercialization of chemistry-based technologies. We previously in December held a one-day pitching event in San Diego, and we had some really good investors there, some really good companies, and we're going to be doing more things like this. Our goal is to deliver practical, real-life information. This is not some theoretical thing. The people who are on this program, as you'll see, have all been selected because they've done it or they have something worthwhile and practical to say. So to all of you who are here, who are in the process of starting a company, thinking about starting a company, we really hope that these 2 days you will take away real knowledge. And at this point, I'd like to acknowledge that we do have a couple of reporters in the audience. We have our Italian magazine here. Raise your hand. I know you're here. Chemistry Today. And we have Chemical and Engineering News, Sophie Rovner. So we hope that we'll have some nice publicity on this too for those people who weren't able to be here, and we really thank you very much. I also really want to thank Ray Stewart from Thompson Coburn for helping to sponsor this. We're really very delighted to have that sponsorship, and you'll hear from him later. I want to thank all of our speakers and participants for joining us here today. So now it is my really great pleasure to introduce Tom Tritton, who's President and Chief Executive Officer of the Chemical Heritage Foundation. And CHF was founded in 1982, so it's getting to be a venerable organization. Tom has a unique background, I think. He's actually was the president of Haverford College. But his academic field is cancer chemotherapy, and when he was an active researcher, he had over 150 publications. He had a distinguished career as a professor of pharmacology, both at Yale University and the University of Vermont, And at the University of Vermont, he also served as deputy director of the Vermont Comprehensive Cancer Center and as vice provost of the university. He's on the boards of the Fox Chase Cancer Center and Ohio Wesleyan University and the Greater Philadelphia Life Sciences Congress, and he's a member of the Corporation of Haverford College. And he has been here almost 5 years. Prior to that, he actually was in a program at Harvard University where I met him. It's an interesting program. It's called President in Residence. And they take former presidents of different universities and they bring them to Harvard for a year. And while he was there, he worked with graduate students in higher education. He wrote and taught about leadership in the college presidency, and he also designed a new course on social justice. So, Tom, it's my pleasure to have you come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Madeleine. I hope someday I get the chance to introduce you so that I can pay you back for that way overly effusive introduction. But it is my pleasure to welcome you all here to my house. Mi casa es su casa, as some people say. I couldn't help but realize that at this time of year, if you're paying attention at all, you're caught up in what has come to be known as March Madness, namely the NCAA basketball tournament. And it's really fun. Even if you don't like sports, you can't help but be swept up with the thrill of competition. And I think that's where competition belongs, on the athletic fields. In the other sectors of life, the key to success is collaboration. And that's why the American Chemical Society and the Chemical Heritage Foundation are always looking for ways to collaborate. And in fact, every year when the CEOs and the board chairs of our two organizations, plus the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, get together for our annual meeting, that's what we talk about, is ways that we can collaborate. And it was out of last summer's meeting that this meeting arose. So I'm really glad that what seemed like a hypothetical concept last summer is now an actual reality. I have to tell you, though, that okay, is this on or off? Okay, sorry, it sounded like I just changed something. But anyway, I was doing a reunion weekend for my college, and there's multiple events that go on that you all know about if you go back to your colleges or universities for reunions. And I was doing a session that only a university president could love. It was on the future of liberal education. And against that, in another building, was a symposium that we set up with 4 young alums. They had to be less than 10 years or less out of college, who had started their own businesses and done well. So 95% of the alums went to one of those, and 5% went to the other one. So guess which was which. So I do understand and appreciate the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship, which of course is what we're here for today. Since you're going to be here for 2 days, I thought I'd take just a minute to tell you about CHF so you can, when you have breaks, you can enjoy some of what goes on here. When you came in the door, you might have seen that at the front desk it says Library, Museum, Center for Scholars. That tells you all you need to know, but I'll elaborate slightly. Library tells you that we're collections-based. If you can think of it, we'll collect it. If it has to do with the history and impacts of chemistry, or anything that has to do with molecules, actually. So we collect books, works of art, archives, papers, manuscripts, instruments, stamps, chemistry sets, objects. We collect everything. If you can believe it, there are 5.5 miles of shelves in this building. Most of it's below ground. We have 2 off-site buildings, and we're full, so we're building another building right around the corner. If you notice the construction project on 3rd Street, that's our Archive of Science and Business, which will open up next fall. If you want to see the foundational work of all of modern science, that would be Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica, let me know. We have it. If you'd like to see what most people consider to be the primal work that started modern chemistry, Robert Boyle's The Skeptical Chemist, let me know. We have it. We have the archives of the Dow Chemical Corporation. We have archives of many important chemists, including a number of Nobel Prize winners. We even have the archives of several of ACS's scientific divisions. So again, collaboration. So that's a library and collections. Middle part is museum. That is intended to convey the idea that we're an educational institution. The museum is one way that we do that, and it's actually a way that we make our collections available to broader publics. And we opened the museum 5 years ago, right about the time the world fell apart, remember 2008? So it never needed proving that I had no business sense, but that certainly refined that idea. The museum is really good, and I can brag about it because I had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it's good. But you should take some time to see it. Madeleine mentioned that the gallery in the back where we put on the rotating exhibits is named after Kitty Hawk. It just so happens that tomorrow night on public television, there's a special TV program that we produce called Women in Chemistry, and one of the women featured is Kitty Hawk. And I know some of you know her. You cannot find a more lively, interesting, stimulating, just all-around wonderful person than her. And there's several others just like her on this Women in Chemistry program. So check it out. It's on the local WHYY now, but we're expecting it will go to other local PBS outlets in due course. We do other educational things as well. We publish Chemical Heritage Magazine, which you should all take a free copy, or many, if you'd like, when you're in the building. We have a book series with the University of Chicago. We have somewhere between 50 and 100 public events every year. We'll do anything we can think of, basically, to get people interested in science. So that's museum. The third piece is Center for Scholars, which tells you that we're an independent research organization. We have our own research PhD level faculty type people in the building who work on the history and the impacts of chemical sciences. And we have the largest fellowship program in the US in the history of science. Roughly 20 fellows come each year from around the world to conduct research here, using our collections and forming with each other a community of scholars in this area. So it's a pretty lively place. You'll have some breaks, I trust, and you'll need to get away from the heaviness of the work that you're doing. So check out the place, and if you're interested in seeing any of the other things, let me know, and I'll be happy to help. So again, welcome, and now something I've always wanted to do. Here's Madeleine.
Thanks, Tom. That's great. And I do applaud the Chemical Heritage Foundation, and I agree. You should use some of your breaks, not just to network, but to step into the library, and we'll see some others. And again, I want to thank Tom very much for being our host, and also his staff for making sure that all the arrangements today have worked out. Now, I'm going to turn this program over to Ken Pulk, and many of you have talked to Ken because he invited you to come here, but I'd like to say a few words about Ken. Ken has a very interesting background. His title is Special Assistant for Innovation and Legal Affairs. And but he has a unique combination of scientific, business, legal, and financial knowledge and experience. And I was very fortunate that he came to ACS in 2007, and he was working on a program that we had that was new business ventures. And when we closed that down, we were delighted to use this unique set of talents to work on what later became the Entrepreneurial Resources Center, and he administers that piece of the Entrepreneurial Initiative. But before he joined ACS, he practiced intellectual property and business transactions law with the national firm Reed Smith. And he, previously to that, was with environmental law with a company called Babs Calland in Pittsburgh. And for 12 years, he founded and maintained his own law practice, focused on counseling entrepreneurs, startups, small businesses. And he had quite a bit of success in that in terms of business development. He worked with startups with their business development, their legal operations, and also raising money, very important for entrepreneurs. He also worked with the University of Pittsburgh. He was the first industry liaison officer for marketing and transfer of promising discoveries to industry. And there's more. I'll just tell you that he has a bachelor's and a master's degree in civil engineering from the University of Pittsburgh, and his law degree from Duquesne University School of Law. He's also a member of the bar to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania and a licensed professional engineer in Pennsylvania. And his daughter is an Olympic level rower, just won the silver in Australia in one of the World Cup events for USA, Team USA. So incredible person with a wonderful 5 kids, terrific family, and a really dear colleague who I'm very pleased now to turn this over to him. Ken?